All right, guys, good morning. Wave meteorologist Brian Good. Welcome to Storm Talk. Going to get right into it. A lot to cover today. I'll try to explain the best way I can where we stand on the setup for heavy rain, potential for flash flooding, potential for river flooding, and still a potential for some severe weather. We'll cover all that and more in just a few moments here. As we get through the next few moments, we're going to cover the outlooks and the future cast. Hopefully, I'll get to some of the data that will answer your questions. But if I do not, as always, you can chime in, especially on our YouTube channel, Facebook, and Twitter. You can make comments, and they will show up here, just FYI. Unfortunately, on the streaming devices like Fire Stick and on Roku, they will not show up, and on our streaming channel as well. Tawana Andrews in the house as well. I don't have a camera in. You want to say hi real quick? Say hello to everybody.
Hi.
Hi.
Bye.
That was short and to the point. There she goes. She's hanging out here with me on this Wednesday. It's Wednesday, right?
Yeah.
Wednesday, as we're tracking the setup here. All right, I already see some of your questions coming into play. Let's see. Oh, Lisa, I am so sorry. You have my condolences. So sorry. I just saw your comment on there. I appreciate you being here. Appreciate it big time. Hello, Elizabeth. Hello to... let's see, Mary from YouTube right now. Hello, Mary Kate. Wait a minute, are you the Mary Kate? No, maybe. I don't know. May not be. Probably not. Oh, we got a spammer. Hold on, got a spammer. Man, they're fighting early today. All right, let's get rid of these spammers. Get them on out of here. All right. Well, Mitchell, when will the warm weather stay? Sometime in June. Early thoughts on this. I like having her here. It's like having a studio audience. This is great. I mean, nothing against you all. All right, I just can't hear you.
Live studio.
I got another spammer. What? Somebody like sell this link for the blog or something. Something's happened here. So, the Mary, you're the Mary Kate. Okay, good. Well, welcome aboard. Welcome aboard. All right, you ready? Let's dive into it. Let's start. Well, make sure everyone's got their notepad ready because I mentioned that on my post I sent out on the alert. You got to have your notepad. So type 13. Actually, that's a bad one. Type 14. Type 14 if you got your notepad ready and you're ready to go here. And we'll get started on the outlooks as we head through the next few days. And then we'll get into the potential for the heavy rain. I'm going to try to split this up the best way I can. And topic, I think your biggest question, of course, is going to be timing. I can tell you right now, it is going to be very difficult to get timing out right now by location because the data is really all over the place, as you'll see, but I can give you a general idea, and that's the game plan today, and we'll get closer. All right, so let's start with the outlooks from the Storm Prediction Center. We are good today. We're fine. We just got the light rain that's annoying. That's about it. Tomorrow looks good. I think we will have a period of sunshine in Kentucky. Indiana, don't think you're going to get much in the way of sun at all tomorrow. Therefore, you will not get the chance to enjoy the 70s that Kentucky will. And certainly the more south and east of Louisville you are, the better the opportunity to get well into the 70s will be. And then Friday, we have the marginal risk of severe weather. And this is, again, Friday night that we're talking about. I'll show you more on that on a more regional aspect here of the map here in just a second. Here's the alert day that is out for Friday. And based on what I'm seeing so far, this is probably going to be a Friday night, early Saturday alert day. It may cover 2 days. We'll work on how we're going to communicate that later. But periods of heavy rain, 2 to 4 inches, is pretty much a lock for those of you along and north of the Ohio River. It is basically a lock at this point. I have yet to find data that is not showing those kind of numbers, which that is not a record amount of rainfall, but it is enough to cause problems, especially if it comes down too hard. 4 inches or more is showing up as well, but that zone is not as locked in at the moment. So that's the reason why there's still going to be some fluctuations on this. But there's 2 different types of flooding potential. Of course, you have flash flooding while it is falling. So hydroplaning issues in the roadway, small streams, creeks can get over the roads. You run into problems with, especially in the city of Louisville, the viaducts that we have, 6 Mile Lane, not far from Hurstbourne Parkway, Breckenridge Lane. Also, as you head towards 7th Street into downtown Louisville. So there are zones that if you've been here for a while, you're used to that. Flash flooding is going to be one of the concerns that you could have when we face that scenario. And you need to keep an eye on your basements. And if you have just a low-lying area, that tends to flood in your yard. So watch your basements. If they've been leaking lately out of the past couple of rain events, this rain certainly can do just that by all means. And just keep an eye on travel in general with those heavier rain bands. And if you've had a leaky roof lately and you haven't had it fixed yet, this is the kind of rain where it's so prolonged in duration in some areas that you're going to be fighting a battle if you don't have plans in place to protect that roof, if you don't have time to get it fixed. I hope you have time. You do have some time. And today is not a bad day. Tomorrow is not a bad day as well to get that taken care of. But if you do have a leaking roof right now, I would not go through this next rain event with that still at play. Just some advice on that. All right, here we go. Live look at Churchill Downs. Foggy, kind of hazy look to it, drizzly, whatever descriptor you want to use. All right, it is cool outside. Temperatures really haven't had a chance to warm a ton because of the clouds and the drizzle. Although when you walk out, it's because the dew point is relatively high. It's not really a cold feeling. It actually is not bad outside. You can tell it's cool, but I wouldn't say it's cold at all. I think it actually is pretty nice outside at the moment. So 40s, we should still get into the 50s today, but there is a limit today because of the cloud cover. All right, so here's the radar showing the drizzle moving on by, the one batch of rain. This will keep regenerating. At least it will keep trying to regenerate. And this actually will be the attempt by the atmosphere in this boundary all the way through tonight. If in this zone here, along this line, roughly near the Wabash through Meade County down to about, say, Danville, Kentucky, that zone and east, even all the way through sunrise tomorrow, there is a chance of redevelopment at any point that can happen. It wouldn't be anything heavy, but it would keep it wet at times in the roads. If you're south and west of that line, I think you're pretty much done. But along and east of it, I think it's still going to be the case. All right, rainfall so far, it hasn't been much. 1/10 of an inch, some spots, a little more than that, especially when the rain first approached last night. It had a little more of a kick to it, but since then, not too much. We are watching some lightning, what will likely be an issue for hail in 2 areas of Missouri and Illinois. That is expected to stay to our north. Storm Prediction Center's got their eye on it. They've already got it outlooked on a marginal risk just to cover that little batch moving through. But again, that's going to stay to our north. The wider view shows how it's relatively quiet for the moment. The energy that's really going to fire things up in the front itself is still way back here to the west. It still has to sink down into the Ohio Valley, and that will happen over the next 36 hours. That's going to lead to the problems when it comes to the first round of flooding. Let's talk severe weather real quick. Mention that marginal risk up into the upper Ohio Valley for hail today. Tomorrow, you start to see signs where the front begins to take shape. So there is a chance that maybe some localized areas, there could be some gusty winds, damaging wind potential, but I'm not too worried about that. And most of that is to our north. But then we get to Friday. Now, Friday is the main day, Friday afternoon, Friday night for severe weather and tornadoes. That is once again in the newly defined Tornado Alley, which is down into the Dixie States. And that's a spot that's been hit nonstop for about 6 months now, and that's not going to change. So they will be under the main zone. But notice you get into Kentucky, you got the slight risk, and then it drops down to the marginal for our area. It's important to note the way these outlooks are designed, majority of the time frame of the window is a rather lengthy window. So we always try to give you a narrow version of that time frame when you see this map. In this particular case, This is more toward midnight, if not even after midnight Friday night, into about sunrise Saturday morning. That is the window to watch for the potential for maybe some stronger thunderstorms. So it's a late night setup on Friday is the main reason for that outlook of a marginal risk. Could that go to a slight risk? It's possible. It's an overnight timing, a little tougher to get enough fuel for that to happen, but this does have a nice little kick with the low moving in, so I wouldn't rule it out, but at the moment, there are more things against it than for it, so that's good, but I'll show you some data on that as well coming up in a second. All right, let me show you the bigger view of how the storyline will go, and pay attention. This should be at least item 16 on your notepad you've wrote down so far. If you haven't wrote anything down yet, I'm really disappointed. Let's see. Chevette, is there a tornado warning right now? Nope, you're fine. And you're in bed, you said? So stay in bed. You're good. You're fine. Enjoy your Wednesday. Glad we saw that one. All right, here we go. The front dropping down as we head into your Thursday. So, warm day on Thursday. The sun will come out tomorrow. That actually matches. Mm-hmm. The sun will come out tomorrow. I'm not going to sing. Across central Kentucky. Now, the thing is, right along the boundary, there is a buffer zone. It is going to be tough to get any sun if you are 3 or 4 counties either side of that. That would include those in Indiana, and it may even include Louisville. Louisville does have a bust potential tomorrow on our highs. If the cloud cover forms too quickly along the Ohio River, we're looking at more like 68 to 70, maybe 71. That's still not bad. That's still not bad. We'll take it. But if we can get into the sun longer, then we can get to what we're expecting right now, which will be 78. I think the 78s, maybe even touching closer to 80, is going to be more where the sun will be out the longest. And that is going to be the pocket that forms right there in central Kentucky. But Louisville, right on the edge. If you're in Shepherdsville, Lebanon Junction, all the way down to Loretta, Kentucky, down into Greensboro and Campbellsville, you may be in the sweet spot to get warmer weather than Louisville will get, but it'll be close. It'll be close. Either way, it'll be warm, but because of the front and the boundary being nearby, it will be windy all day long. I don't think it's going to be a strong wind gust to be overly concerned about, but I think gusts that could go up to 40 miles per hour can take place, especially in the areas that are right there on the edge of the partly sunny and sunny zone. So near Louisville, we could see some of those stronger wind gusts tomorrow. Windy, warm. And for those of you in Indiana, the rain's going to begin to sink down. Now, here's the problem we've got as meteorologists. Friday or into Thursday night and Friday morning, it will sink south, but how far? Where does it stop for a while? And that's a good question. This particular run of the Euro wants to take it all the way down to at least get the rain into the I-64 corridor. Some modeling does not go that far south, which would potentially allow us to get through rush hour Friday morning without much of a concern. But right now, there's too much of a wiggle room, and the margin of error is roughly about, I would say, 60 miles at the moment. That's too close, because I'm talking about a difference between Scott County, Indiana, and Clark County having a rough morning in terms of very heavy rainfall for rush hour, and then Louisville and Bullitt County may not have much at all, and we can get through rush hour fine. But if that line and that zone of heavier rain sinks more south, or even tries to redevelop even more south of the main line, it may be right over the city of Louisville. And then we do have a problem for rush hour on Friday being just really messy with hydroplaning concerns, that kind of stuff. You guys know the drill. So we don't know yet. There's just too much of a close call on that boundary. But because Indiana will likely have the boundary nearby, you're going to start to build up the rain total forecast here. We're going to start to accumulate the rain. Your rain gauges will start going up and up and up and up throughout the day on Friday. Meanwhile, Kentucky, overall, relatively quiet. Don't see much happening for much of the daytime period, especially south of 64. So that's the zone to watch. The front is going to wiggle, though. It's not a perfectly straight line like we draw them on the weather maps here. They don't stay in place. This is a very wavy setup. So this front is going to wiggle back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So the rain will do just that. So that's going to cause some areas to have higher rain totals than others. It'll be a general zone, though, that will be impacted by the multiple rounds that will likely come through. Then we get into Friday night into Saturday. Now, here's where things could start to shift more toward Louisville and central Kentucky, is when that low pressure begins to move by. Now we've got the heavier rain pushing more into the area. And on top of that, sorry about that. Why did that draw that? That's weird. There we go. We also have the the box zone, and I'll just stick with it. Keep calling it the American flag. That's what you guys are used to. The zone that we get into as we enter Friday night. But again, here we are Saturday at 2:30 in the morning. We enter the box zone for that early time period. That's not a time period for severe weather. Again, so we lose some instability, but so far, a lot of the soundings I've looked at show some. It's not zero. And there is some wind energy to work with, and certainly plenty of moisture, which may be the catalyst on this. The moisture could allow for an unstable setup, but it allows for the thunderstorm potential to go up for areas in Kentucky that are in that box. And right now, I don't see a huge tornado potential on this one, only because the wind fields so far are showing more of a southwest flow at the ground and above. That's more of a unidirectional, is what we call that flow. So if that can hold, we may end up more of just a straight line wind potential out of some of those storms that form. But if you end up with any wiggles along that line, yes, you can develop brief tornadoes in that setup. I just don't know yet how far that we would need to draw that, or in how much into wave country at all we would need to draw that. That is something that's going to take another day for us to figure out, unfortunately. But we know that's at least possible given what normally happens, right, in these type of setups of low pressures. Once we get past that threat, it's also worth mentioning, add this to your notepad, it's also worth mentioning Saturday morning, because the low pressure moving on by, the gradient wind, all right, just general gradient wind is going to be strong. I'm talking about gusts that could go up to 45 miles per hour. Still nothing like March 3rd, to be clear, but up to 45 miles per hour. And that would potentially be some of the stronger winds we would have in the entire system. For some of you, would be actually Saturday morning. So I don't want that to sneak in and catch you one off guard. It's going to be a windy setup, but not cold. You see the snow up there to the north, but it really doesn't drop. We generally stay in the 60s, even after the front. We just don't get cold. It just stays windy. All right, so that's the overall setup. Let's get into some numbers on rainfall. Everyone okay? Type 16 if you're okay. Type 16 if you're okay. Type 17 if you are needing help. And
17.
17. All right, well, I got one. Lisa, always got to have a little wiggle room. Yeah, well, that's what all meteorologists say, right? Always got to have the wiggle room there. All right, got some 16s there. Several 16s. What number did I say? I got a 15. Lauren said 15, so I don't know what I said. It's 15?
You said 16 for okay, 17 if you got problems.
What's 15?
I guess.
Now I'm concerned about Lauren
Yeah.
at this point. Okay, all right. Lauren, I'll come back around to you. I'll come back around to you. Just hang tight. Don't disappear on me. All right, this is, what model was this one? This is the GFS model of rainfall for the event. And then this is combining the front that moves in, sags south, and then the thunderstorms that track along it Friday night, Saturday morning. So this is the whole event. Louisville, roughly 3 inches. Indiana, 4 to 6 is showing up. That's not good. That can cause certainly some big problems with a lot of the rivers into Indiana. Lower amounts to the south. So the trend is still there. Indiana higher, Kentucky lower. That's from the GFS. Now, when I looked at the GFS ensembles, they were interesting because the black line is like the median of all the different ideas. All the gray lines are the potential amounts. The model has different scenarios in its mindset, and it's saying, okay, of all the different scenarios, what are the ranges? And its median is 3 inches for Louisville, but it does indicate the potential for over 5 up to 6 or even a little higher. Can't be ruled out. There is that potential, but it's got to be fair to say there are also some amounts that are under 3 inches that are possible, where it could be underplayed, where there's some shifting going on. So the GFS is kind of trying to balance it out, so it's going with 3. But you could see the range is still quite high. We want to see all of that compact a lot more than what is indicated, and right now it's got a pretty wide spread, which is not overly unusual for this far out. I mean, it's Wednesday. We're talking more like into Friday night now, really, for most of this. So tomorrow it should focus a little more, but at least you have an idea on what some of the numbers are showing there on that. So that's GFS and its ensembles idea. Here is the Euro indicating a very similar look, roughly 3 to 5 inches, I would say, for Indiana. Louisville around 3 or over 3, a little higher up the 71 corridor, a little lower to the south. So the storyline north to south still fits. Indiana still showing worse than Kentucky. What is interesting, we can also look at what we call the extreme index the euro can do for its ensembles. And I've been monitoring this. It has a pretty good accuracy rate, by the way, but it is indicating basically the zone to watch. And Louisville's right here, by the way, would be that zone to kind of highlight on the actual run of the euro. So we're very close to the Ohio River, but Indiana still is listed as more of a target than Kentucky on that euro extreme outlook. Now we get into the graph model, which is our in-house model. But now that this looks different, right? Yeah, we still got the high totals in Indiana, but now we're getting the high totals a little more into Kentucky that are showing up. This is the only model that's doing this. So why is that the case? Well, here's why. As I animate the model itself, you see that we're fine today. Tomorrow we get into the potential for 70s. You see that there where it, easily get in the 70s. You get in that sun pocket. Here's the front dropping in from the north. It is interesting too, by the way, the graph model, our in-house model, does show how that heavier rain band, look at how close that is at rush hour Friday morning. Just hugs right along the river there, very close to Louisville. So it's, again, Louisville's not a lock-in on a messy setup on the morning rush. It's just the potential is there. But then we see everything shift a little more south. Now, what the graph wants to do is try to produce the chance at some severe weather Friday afternoon, which is possible because you got 70s that were showing up there the day before, and they're still going to be the 70s. So the severe threat would be a little earlier on the graph model, and it actually carries the severe threat into the overnight hours of Friday night, but it moves it right across Kentucky. Now, this is not what you want to see. This would actually have some wiggles with it and a damaging wind threat, and this is at, what is that time? 1 a.m. Saturday morning. So the reason why the graph model was so aggressive on higher totals is it's got more thunderstorm action. Thunderstorms, I'm telling you, in this environment, general rain, yes, you end up with some high totals sometimes that are actually fairly easy to predict. What is really a catalyst that throws off a rainfall forecast is convection. Thunderstorms are such machines, they can actually enhance the rainfall beyond sometimes what a model can pick up, and you end up with overachieving flash flooding scenarios. A lot of problems out there develop in those kind of days. Anytime we have lightning and thunder, that's the problem. Remember the flooding we had, when was that? Was the 3rd or the day before? The morning of the 3rd. We had a lot of lightning. Remember that intense lightning that morning woke everyone up on sunrise. Then we had the flooding that developed across the region on that morning. That was convection. That's what led to a lot of the problems. Anytime you get thunderstorm action, you end up with a skewed rainfall forecast. And that's why some of those lines on the ensembles, even on GFS, were a little higher, is that some of its data indicates there could be thunderstorms a little more focused in Kentucky. The graph model is showing that. So it's an outliner right now as far as what the other models are showing. But as far as why it's showing high totals in Kentucky and the layout for this, that all makes sense. So we can't ignore this idea. We'll just see if it's consistent or not on that idea as we get a little closer into time on that. Sorry about that.
You good?
Yeah, I skipped for some reason. I do that a lot. My brain skips. Here's the latest from the river forecast from the Corps of Engineers for the next 7 days. Several of the gauges have gone now into red. Not good from the Scatatuck, I would say Patoka Lake, East Fork, the White River at Rivervale, and into Seymour. Would get into a moderate flood stage. Now, the Ohio did improve. It's only showing the upper gauge at action stage now. Why is that the case? If you look carefully at the map, you can actually see the rivers themselves. The river basin for this area of Indiana, if we were to get the 4 inches or so of rainfall or higher right in this area, so Paoli, Salem, Madison, Seymour, Bedford, Indiana, that actually feeds into the Wabash River Basin, which then will flood the Ohio River downstream all the way to the Mississippi. We do not see that water flow get into the Ohio. However, if the rain does fall a little closer to the Ohio, then yes, it would feed the Ohio itself. Even heavy rain in Cincinnati, for all intents and purposes, heavy rain even all the way up into Pennsylvania. All that feeds down. So where it falls is important on the longer term aspect of this beyond the alert day of river flooding, especially the giant rivers like the mighty Ohio. Those that kind of setup we just don't know yet. And even for the rolling fork and the salt, we just don't know yet how that will play out until we get an idea where to fall. Obviously, the graph in-house model idea would actually escalate this a little more. But if we go by the other modeling ideas that I just showed you that focus more on Indiana for the main rain event, then most of the water flow should be in the Wabash, not into the Ohio. So hopefully that makes sense. That's it, guys. That is your dissertation for today. That was a lot to cover for just 2 days. So I apologize for all the info. But I want to make sure that you all have, I don't want to overload you, but I want you all to, we can't do this in a 3-minute weathercast on TV. I mean, you guys get that, right? So want to make sure that we have a chance to show you everything that we're looking at as much as we can, why we're coming up with the decisions and the forecasts that we are, but also what is in the back of our mind that could still happen, or I don't want to say go wrong. It's just other solutions that could become more likely as we get closer. Can't ignore those. So they're in the back of our minds. We see the data there, but we're going right now with the most likely scenario, and we'll just adjust as we get data coming in because we're only as good as what the data that we have in front of us, right? So there you go. Ashley, I'm already exhausted thinking about Friday. I understand. I don't see there being a lot of severe weather at the moment. If we keep the rain machine going, that cuts down on a lot of it. So you really want a cloudy sky and a lot of rainfall, but you don't want too much because you get flooding. It's hard to make everything balanced on this one because if you don't get a lot of severe weather, that means you're probably in heavy rain, which means you got flooding. But if you don't get a lot of heavy rain and flooding, that means you're more in the severe thunderstorm risk, right? So there's two different evils, if you will, with this system. And one of the two is the one we're going to be facing. And in some cases, we may find ourselves with both because we cover 30 counties. So that's important to know too. Brady, are we into a rainy period for the next several weeks? Yes. We have a system that comes in Monday. It doesn't look overly heavy on Monday, but we have several that are lined up to get us all the way through April. So yeah, it is going to be an active storm track, and it does look like it is going to be quite the wet spring for us. So is the marginal risk because of the heavy rain potential or storm potential? Marginal risk, Shonda, is for the damage wind potential. And again, there is a low end chance Friday afternoon if you go with the graph, but the majority of the data aims more toward late Friday night. As that low moves in, that's when the main chance will kick in. But those kind of risks are always tough to call this far in advance. We are watching it. Travis, colder next week. Models can see it. Yes, it will get colder, but colder than normal. And you got to keep that in mind. There will be some cold shots, but now our cold shots that are showing up are like 50 in our area. Travis, you're northern Indiana, but here it's like 50 for the cold shots. So we're getting to the point where the cold shots are not as dramatic. And I do not see anything significant on snow. Just FYI, you're probably going to ask. There is a brief window Monday night north of Louisville. There could be a mix. It's a brief window. I'm not talking about it because I don't see it being anything right now we need to cover. All right. Yes. Soggy yard. Get ready. I was going to do some grass seed, but I'm going to have to plan out my plans carefully the next few days because I don't want it to all float away to the neighbors. Diana from YouTube. Good morning from a cloudy day there in Paoli. All right. It's cloudy, I think, everywhere. So you're not alone on this. Hang in there. Lady in Kentucky on YouTube. Is it going to stay mild in March or get cold? I think we'll have cold shots, but again, cold relative to normal. I don't see any, 25-degree days and a blizzard. Okay. There's no sign of anything like that. But there wouldn't be either in a long range, right? In March, those don't show up until a little closer in range. But so far, we're getting late in March now. Once we get to April, pretty much going to be out of that zone. All right, guys, I got to end it there because I've got a lot to still do, and it's 11 minutes after 10 o'clock. So I appreciate your attention as always. Stay close to the forecast updates the next couple of days. We'll just monitor the setup carefully and see how this plays out. And I'm hoping that we'll have better news to share with you guys, and this ends up being a tamer event, but we can't take that risk for now. Take care, and I'll talk to you guys on midday.